Okay, everybody, thanks for tuning in. I just want to talk a little bit about the military recruiting disaster, which seems to be getting worse. I made a little video about this earlier. I'll link to it later. Military recruiting is tanking, especially for the Army. That's because the Army is the largest service. They have to get the most people. As you all know, maybe you don't know, but the Army and all the other services have been volunteer since 1973, at the end of the Vietnam War. Since then, they have to engage those people who would actually volunteer for the all-volunteer military. And for a while, we haven't had a problem doing that. We've had enough people to enlist, and things have gone on because, since the end of the draft, we weren't going to actually fight any more wars, right? Right? Well, that didn't turn out to be so true, and they still need an army. Whether they need to fight the wars or not is another matter, but here we are. Now, there's a lot of theories as to why there's no takers for this. Is it DEI? Is it political correctness? Is it woke politics? I think those are all factors in why they're having a difficult time recruiting people, specifically men, to be in the combat arms and all the military generally. They've plateaued with the number of women who want to join. They can't get any farther with that. They really, really cannot attract the young guys to serve. They just can't. But I think this main problem here is not the current thing that I just mentioned. It's not all that stuff. I think it's more basic than that. There's a silver lining in all of this, at least I hope, and I'll start talking about this, try to be quick about this. Okay, The Rock was part of some recruiting deal. They paid him $11 million and some kind of a deal with the UFL, which is an alternative football league that nobody really watches. Their first season was this summer. The Rock was supposed to make 5 tweets for $11 million. That's all he had to do. And he made 2 of them. I don't know if they were tweets or Instagram, something on social media. That was it. They're paying him a ton of money to make 5 social media posts, and he couldn't even do that. But they did not recruit a single service member off of this plan. And given analytics, they'd probably be able to determine pretty easily whether or not that's true. So they feel ripped off. I kind of don't blame them, but then again, I'm going to get into it later. It's not as simple as just hiring The Rock and doing a promotion. At the same time, they've buried this ad that everybody's seen, the Army recruiting ad featuring a soldier with 2 moms, just got hard to find. So it's still on YouTube, but they don't make it as easy to find because it's working against their current plan to recruit enough young men into joining. There's another ad out there too, some other animated one, but they're geared towards women and a softer side of the Army. You can watch for yourself if you haven't seen it already. What they used to do, even back during the Vietnam era, when there was a draft going on, they used to post advertisements in magazines and elsewhere, which required, if you wanted to learn how to be a warrant officer, they needed a lot of helicopter pilots. Back then in Vietnam in '68, 500,000 U.S. military personnel were in Vietnam. That was the peak of the presence, and they needed a lot of helicopters. To be a helicopter pilot, you have to be a warrant officer. They would train you for it. You would mail away. Look at this. Circle number 85 on the reader service card, which was another item in the magazine. Fill it out, mail it away. They send you some information, and you go from there. It was all manual in the old days. There was no internet. But it was enough. They could still attract enough boomers. This is an ad from the 1970s. Real haircuts. Look at that. Real mustache. Yeah, I couldn't get away with that much later. But back then, it was kind of a fun place to be from veterans I've talked to. Anyway, in the 70s, it was a pretty big Army still, pretty big military generally. Didn't start downsizing until a lot later. But they didn't have a problem attracting enough people for the volunteer machine. This guy here, 1977, thinking about country. Not that he really had to think about it much. But, hey, real haircut, real mustache, wasn't a bad place to be. Kind of cool, get some college money. Even into the 80s, 1980s, they're trying to attract people to join the 2nd Ranger Battalion. Yeah, that's where he is, 2nd Ranger Bat, which is kind of back then they even knew that it was mostly white guys that joined, mostly, let's face it, rednecks, and there's still a small contingent of blacks and Hispanics that joined, but they wanted to make sure they had enough, so they were targeting this black guys that might be interested in joining the Ranger Regiment. That's all fine. Again, this is from a magazine, and recruiters would do the same thing. They'd send things out. This one here was from a magazine. I remember this, 1985. Meet the only sergeant you'll ever give orders to. And again, look at this. He's got a Republic of Vietnam campaign awarded by the Republic of Vietnam. This here is the U.S. military Vietnam service ribbon, 2 stars, did 2 tours over there. So this guy had been around. Looks like he served in an SF unit. The guys who are doing these recruiting jobs, they've been around. They also know that your uncle had probably been around, or maybe your brother was in the Army. So they could lie, but they couldn't lie too much because chances are you knew somebody, at least you thought you knew somebody who'd give you a version. But even then, there wasn't as much information as there is now. And this is what I'm getting to with my broader point. Number of internet users worldwide from '05 to 2023. '05 is around the time I finally got out of the Army. I think I got my papers, it was about '07 finally, but '05 to 2023. Look at the growth worldwide of internet use. And not just internet use, how about social media? Number of people using social media platforms. Where do you think all the information is happening these days? '04, it was nothing. Okay. And look at Facebook from '08 to now climbing, but this only goes to 2018. And look at TikTok right here. Starts in 2017, sharp line upward. I bet if this graph kept on going, TikTok would be somewhere up here, past Instagram. In fact, I know it would be. It'd be somewhere around here. YouTube, TikTok, something like that, right around there. So everybody is looking at this. And there are people in active duty on TikTok talking about what the service is like, saying what they do or don't like about it. Sometimes they're talking so much about how it sucks, they might actually be getting looked after by their command somehow if they can catch them. So the information is out there, and it's not hard to find. And even though the DoD talks about this on the Pentagon's website, support Ukraine, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. There will be no short, sharp war with China. A fight could go on for years. Yeah. Well, that's what the defense industry wants. It's a ridiculous idea going to war with China. Oh, wait, but we could be drawn into a war with Iran. Oh, you never know, Biden warns. Ridiculous. And similarly, U.S. support for Israel's war has become indefensible, but we'll still defend it because, we might want to go to war with Iran. So all this stuff, like I talked about before, you're going to go to war. A good chance you'll go to war. You're going to find out what it's really like for people who are actually in through TikTok. And meanwhile, oh yeah, well, if we can't get enough of you, we're talking about drafting. There's some rumors about that. What happened last time they drafted? Yeah, that's a draft card that some boomers burning back in the 60s. Burn draft card, not children. We support draft card burning. These are normal people, not hippies. These are just regular people out there doing this. Is it better to burn a draft card or a child? Conscripts replace South Vietnam deserters. That was a concern back then. You keep drafting people to go fight some war that the native people should be fighting. Is that what they plan on doing with Ukraine? I sure as hell hope not. We've only got, by the way, about 30%, 33% of the military eligible people, the right age. Those people, only about 33% of them are actually qualified to serve. That is, they're not overweight. They don't have a medical problem. They don't have a criminal record. So now you want to bring in a draft? That's not even possible. How many exceptions do you think are going to happen with the draft? Draft card burning? That's another thing. I don't think you've seen anything yet. So this is what the military has become. This is the military they wanted. This is what they want to use to fight. And now they're going to go out and try to draft people into this. I don't think they understand that America hasn't gotten so much acceptance of this. This is tolerance. They put up with it because they have to. These people here carrying the flags, they're putting up with it because they have to. Okay, maybe a couple of them believe in it. Whatever, that's fine. You can't get enough people to voluntarily join because this is what you have. You can't get the guys that you told don't belong in there. The guys you told were too violent, too this, too that, whatever. Biden's up there talking about how, the greatest threat to America is white supremacy. Well, who do you think staffs the combat arms units? Not white supremacists, white people, white guys in particular. So the draft is going to go nowhere. The information is still going to be out there. This is what you got, and you're trying to attract people who were once drafted. You're relying on their sense of country and macho whatever. Maybe you think it's silly, but if that's what you're selling a macho lifestyle and tackling challenges and being a He-Man and all that. This is not going to do it. The volunteer military runs on something else besides this. You think you have this, or you think you're going to get that? You don't have that. This is what you got. This is going to be your officer, okay? The guy who starts out one way and turns out another, and you can't say anything about that, and they're not going to kick him out, and they aren't going to change the rules. They're not going to change the rules. Woke is a ratchet. Woke does not dial back. Woke does not reduce itself. People say, people are tired of woke. It's going to go away. No, it's not. No. And the worst thing is, if we're going to keep on with this woke and they still try draft, wow. This is what you have, or what you think you have on the left. This is what you really have on the right. And I talked about a silver lining earlier, and what I want to say about that is maybe this is a silver lining. Maybe if this is what we're going to be left with, if they really can't draft and they can't attract and they can't build the military, maybe they don't have enough military to go start the wars that I detailed earlier, the ones they're already trying to start. This fantasy about going to war with China, this fantasy about going after Iran, or supporting Israel at all costs, or taking out Russia for Ukraine, and all this nonsense. Maybe it just isn't going to work. So I don't think the current people in Washington are really deserving of or responsible enough to be in control and command of an army that's capable. I don't want them to have that. The danger is they may not be rational enough to realize that, and we may go that way anyway. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. If you got any comments, I'd love to hear them in the comments. Thank you very much. Bye.